if you just have a person that cares about you, when all you hear is how bad you are, that you're more likely to drop out, that you're not doing well in school, and what's the point? That's what goes through your head. But if you have a person that is there to make sure that you're not thinking that, that makes the world of difference.
That's good stuff, and the man behind it is Dax-Devlon Ross, Executive Director, After School All-Stars in New York and Newark. Good to see you.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for
Describe
having
this
me.
program.
So it's a comprehensive after-school program. We work mostly in Title I schools across the country.
Describe Title I.
Title I schools are schools that are identified as particularly serving low-income areas. So it's usually a federal standard for number of students, or percentage of students who qualify for free and reduced lunch. So that's the basis upon which that judgment is typically made across the country. So if the school is Title I, that means a certain percentage of their students, typically more than 75% of the students, qualify for free and reduced lunch, which is an indicator of low income status.
What goes on in these programs? What goes on when kids get there? By the way, hours 3 to 6?
3 to 6 every day.
What goes on? And why is 3 to 6 so important? Go ahead.
Well, 3 to 6 is so important because that's the time of day when we start to see juvenile crime spike. It's the time of day when parents are still working, but students are no longer in school, because so therefore they're very susceptible to falling into things we don't want them to fall into, which is gangs, out of school activities that are not structured. So what we do is we provide academic support, which is homework help, which is STEM and literacy programs, also
back up.
enrichments.
STEM and literacy, science, technology, education.
I know, I use that acronym so much.
And math. So why is that whole STEM thing so big for them?
Because I think this particular group of students, the students that come from the backgrounds that we serve, are the students that don't often get the enrichment activities that will spark the interest, that will help catapult them into high school and college programs and ultimately into careers, which is where we see the gap mostly right now, is that there's a tremendous gap nationally around students of color in particular who are introduced to and pursuing careers in STEM fields.
You teach them how to study. You teach them how to stay focused. Do you teach them anything about, because I'm a student of leadership, I'm a student of how it is that people lead themselves before they can lead anyone else. Do you teach them how it is they need to interact with others?
Absolutely. One of the pillars of our program is servant leadership, and that is understanding that to whom much is given, much is expected. And that goes for our programs, our program participants.
How do you teach that to kids?
How do you teach that to kids? You engage them in service learning projects from the very beginning. You get them to understand.
For example?
So, for example, we do whether it's cleanups or whether it's care packages for other kids who might be less to have less than they do. So it's all those sorts of things during the holidays. It's when we run our basketball camps, it's cleaning up a basketball court, painting the basketball court that they're going to both play on and also have for other people. So it's anytime we do anything, we incorporate some portion of a servant leadership component.
So it's in New York.
Yeah.
Bigger in New York than in Newark?
I'd say right now we have a couple more schools in New York than we do in Newark, but Newark is definitely on the rise for us because we're partnering with the school system there, and we're doing a lot of initiatives to help grow the program. And
full disclosure, folks who know us, and you go on our website, which will come up in a moment, one of our programs called Stand and Deliver. We've been doing it for 16 years now. It's a leadership and communication program where we teach leadership and communication skills to young people. You see that website, it may say steveadubato.org, but when you go on, you'll see a big spot that says Stand and Deliver. We started it for inner city kids, mostly in Newark, because that's where I was born and raised. Those hours from 3 to 6, whether you're teaching them communication, leadership, how to interact with others, study habits, all those things.
Yeah.
For a lot of these kids, particularly in our inner cities, tell folks who may not understand it what they would otherwise face.
It's the reality that we read about in the newspapers, see in the newsreels in the morning. It's you're walking home and things can happen, whether it's susceptibility to gangs, it's walking home to a refrigerator that is not stocked with food that you want to eat or that's healthy for them to eat. It's walking home into an apartment or to a house where there isn't an adult waiting for them to support them and give them the kind of love and guidance they need in order to prepare them for the next day. It's all of those things. It's the violence that they're susceptible to. I don't want to just put a broad blanket upon that because I think that there are a lot of great neighborhoods and a lot of great families.
But those things can happen and do.
Yeah.
Who started this program?
This program was started by Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Come on.
Yeah.
I know I heard that. I said, really, Arnold?
Yeah, by Arnold. I've had the pleasure of meeting him a couple times. He's still deeply engaged in the program. This is a commitment of his. You think it's kind of a funny thing, or he just might have done this as a one-off, but he tells the joke, I've heard at least, and I think he's even told it to me, was that you can't be at a family dinner with the Kennedys and with the Shrivers, that's the family who started the Peace Corps, and only talk about your movies and your muscles.
It was about giving back.
Absolutely. I mean, for him, I think it's clearly for him, I think when he talks about it, growing up where he grew up in Austria, he had that every day. He had his parents at home every evening. And I think when you understand what it means to have folks that are there to support you, and you saw in the video that we started this with, and you understand what it means to have someone who says, I believe in you, you understand how vital that is. It's the game changer, and I think it's why he became so passionate about this specific initiative and issue, and has been part of it for the last 22 years.
What about you? What's your story? Why are you so passionate? Where'd you come from?
I grew up in Washington, D.C. I grew up in what I consider to be a pretty privileged background. I grew up, my family was, my father was an engineer, and everybody I knew was a professional. And we had every team you can imagine. I had soccer practice every day after school because Mr. Hughes, who was my soccer coach, would leave his job every day to be our coach, and we had assistant coaches. So I always had structured activity, and I never had to pay a dime for it, and they were always there. Saturday, Sunday to take us to games, Monday through Friday for practice. And that was where I got leadership, built all my best friends, my relationships, so I understand what it means to have that. And I just want to share it with others.
What do you see in these kids?
You see, for me personally, it's when I go to those schools and I spend time in my schools, I get a shot in the arm every time, because I recognize that they all appreciate it, but the light is there, the brilliance is there. The desire to really want to explore all the things that we talk about, whether it's science, technology, or it's sports, it's all there. They just need someone to really encourage, and keep pushing them. But it's all right there. The light is right, it's on.
The investment, how much money are we talking?
The investment is modest. I mean, I will say this. This morning I'm watching the news, and in New York City last year, the state spent about $22,000 per child. Our program costs about $1,300 for an entire year, 3 to 6 per child. Just do the math on that. It's for 50% more time, another 3 hours per day. We're talking another $1,300 per year per child.
Yeah, let's talk about how much it costs to incarcerate someone for a year. That's a whole nother story.
I tell folks we want to pay on the front end and pay on the back end. This isn't to make the assumption that every child is going to end up in that pipeline, but it is to say we can make a modest investment in this now, and we're having a hard time doing this because after school is often always cut. Or we can make a larger investment later on.
Dax, before I let you out of here, as a student of leadership, people who know the series know I asked this question.
Yeah.
Two-parter. One, biggest leadership lesson you've learned so far in life is?
Biggest leadership lesson easily is stick with it. Stay the course. Stay the course. Stay the course.
How about when it gets hard?
Stay the course. I think that's when you start to find out really who's by your side. You start to realize that miracles happen, that if you really believe in things, that doors start to open that you didn't imagine, and people start to open up and share with you their expertise and experience, but you have to stay the course.
Finally, we're taping in mid-September, but in October you got a big fundraising event.
Yeah, for World Trade Center, we're doing a stair climb event. So we're all about health and fitness for our kids, so we want to pass it along to our supporters. We're going to have a great party at the top of the World Trade Center, and we're really looking for climbers, we're looking for volunteers. It's an opportunity to really to get involved and get engaged, and we're hoping to get folks to really come out and support. And if you can't come out, you can still support us by going to the website and punching in. It's ASASNY or asasnnewark.org, and we're right there. You can contribute. We'd love to have the support.
Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you, sir.
Dax-Devlon Ross, Executive Director, After School All-Stars in New York City and Newark. Thank you so much.